Today I'm going to show you how to get a larger camera like the Zcam F6 rig I have here, balanced on the new Zhiyun Crane 3S. Hey, I'm Scott and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we do all kinds of unboxings, test reviews, tutorials, anything photo and video related, so if you like the content, please do consider subscribing and hit that little bell icon to get notifications when new content is uploaded. So obviously I think most of you using a camera like this or a gimbal like this probably know how to balance a gimbal, but just in case, I'm going to show you today. And also there are a couple of things that make balancing on the Crane 3S a little bit unique compared to some other gimbals, so I want to show you things like that as well throughout this process. So let's go ahead, get the camera on there, and then just get it balanced and show you those things along the way. So the first thing to note is that the plate on this gimbal is Manfrotto compatible. The one that it comes with is on the bottom of my camera right now, but this is Manfrotto compatible, which is nice. And also this whole plate can slide out here. So there's a little lever right next to it. Loosen that and you can slide this out and then lock it back down again. And just in case you're wondering, for wider cameras, like I know people have asked about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, 4K or 6K, I don't have those cameras, but I will measure this now for you. Leaving just a little bit of room for the clearance of this motor here. It looks like to the, I guess you could say the edge of where your plate on the bottom of the camera would be, is about just under 9 centimeters, right around 9 centimeters. So I can't guarantee that a camera like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K would fit on here because I don't have one, but you can measure at the bottom of your camera again from the side of the plate. You should have about 9 centimeters of clearance. So obviously the first step to getting a gimbal balanced is to slide your camera on and balance it more or less front to back. And what's really nice about this gimbal is each of these 3 axes have this lock here, so you can just snap it into position 1, let it fall into that lock position, and then tighten it down. And that will just help you to balance this in a little bit less of an unruly way, especially with a larger and heavier camera. If you had to balance all 3 of those axes while holding the other 2 at the same time, it's just going to be craziness. So it's really nice that they do have those nice robust locks in here for each of those axes. You can focus on one at a time. Let's go ahead and get the camera on. So now with the camera's on there, while holding it, of course, you're going to unlock this axis here and just slide it back and forth to find where it's more or less balanced and not tipping forward, not tipping backwards. And again, as always with gimbals, very small movements can really make significant difference in getting this balance just right. Once you find the balance, just lock it down with the lever on the side. Sorry, you can't see that. And the next step is to tilt it up and balance this arm right here. And I just want to note that with this arm extension here, I still have clearance of the back motor, even with this fairly large, fairly long camera setup here. So tilt it straight up, and I've already done this, but you can just slide this arm back and forth here until it's going to stay straight up. And then if you balanced it correctly, you can then do it at like a 45-degree angle like this. You could point it down at a 45-degree angle and it should hold its position no matter where it is. And then you're going to lock down this first axis so that way you don't have to worry about it flapping around as you take care of the others. So next up, we're going to get this rear motor balanced here. So again, unlock that right on the side. For me, it looks like it's already not bad. It's falling to the side just a little bit, but again, for this, you should be able to put it at an angle like that. You should be able to put it at an angle like this. And it's falling a little bit, so I'm gonna maybe make some slight adjustments. And then also just right away, there's a lot of weight pushing down on this, obviously. So there's gonna be friction between this arm and where it's sliding through. So if you wanna make it easier to slide this side to side, you're gonna wanna lift up with your hand the entire gimbal just a little bit, just to relieve some of that friction that's going to be on here as you're trying to slide it back and forth. So you can see here that if I try really hard to push it just like this, it's very difficult to slide this back and forth at all. But if I just lift up the camera just a little bit to relieve that pressure, then I can slide it back and forth very, very easily. So just keep that in mind. If you're struggling with it, there is a lot of weight on here and you're going to need to support the camera in order to make adjustments here. Also, when you're tightening this screw, if you just tighten it just like this, then it might feel like it's tight, but it's really not quite all the way there. So again, just lift this up just a little bit to relieve some of that tension, and then you can turn it even more and you can get it really nice and tight. Boom, that seems to work fine. Again, you can unlock the other axis to see if it really stays in place the way that you want it to. And again, this should stay in place at any angle, up, down, left, and right. So now we've got this axis balanced and we've got this axis balanced. We can go ahead, lock them both down. And we're going to move on to the bottom axis, which on this gimbal is the most difficult just because it's so large and heavy. So typically what you would want to do is you want to unlock this axis, of course, and then as you tilt the gimbal to the side, it should not spin like that. It should remain facing the direction that it is facing. And so let's just quickly check that. You can see it's spinning a little bit forward. You're gonna move the arm in the opposite direction. So it's spinning forward. I'm gonna push the arm just a little bit back. So let's loosen that up. And once again, if you just give it a little bit of a lift, it really does help to slide this, especially when you're making really small adjustments. It's gonna be a lot easier if you kind of relieve some of that strain, the friction due to the weight, just by lifting it up just a little bit as you slide things through here to get the gimbal balanced. Let's check it again. And now you can see that it's actually staying in place. So you can see there's still plenty of clearance in the back for the V-mount battery. And even if I really take this to the extreme, there's a lot of clearance there still for the monitor on top. So that's just really, really useful. For me, I find myself wanting to go back and forth between gimbal use and handheld use. And with this, I don't have to break down or build up my rig each time. I can put it onto the gimbal pretty much as is, with maybe removing the side handle because that's just, unnecessary. But it makes it so much easier to go back and forth between different setups. And that's gonna make me a lot more likely to actually use the gimbal because it's less of a hassle, less of a waste of time. It's just a very smooth workflow, and I really appreciate that. So again, it's a pretty basic video, but you can see that there are some things I want you to keep in mind. Like I said, if you're having trouble sliding the arm side to side, just lift up the camera a bit to relieve that tension to make it a lot easier to get things balanced, especially when you're making those really small adjustments. It's gonna make things a lot easier for you. And also when you're tightening down the motors, especially the rear motor, you really wanna lift that up to get this nice and tight as well, because otherwise the added weight of the camera can make it more difficult to get the actual screw really tight in there, which could cause problems, of course. Otherwise, if you liked this video or found it even a little bit helpful, please do consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't already. As always, thank you for watching.